You're listening to Who Were the Comedian Harmonists, the true story behind Broadway's harmony. I'm your host, Ruthie Fierberg. Though they had been largely lost to history, the Comedian Harmonists were celebrities of their time. So it should come as no surprise that the group rubbed elbows and even worked with celebrities who have decorated the history books. Marlene Dietrich, Albert Einstein, Josephine Baker. These names we know. The musical Harmony depicts relationships between these icons and the Comedian Harmonists, and the group did know each of them. But how they knew them varied here and there from the stage interpretation.
We're going loco. So cuckoo loco. Holy mackerel. Oye, volky. Ay, caramba. The world is going loco for samba.
The first celebrity of the era that audiences meet in Harmony is Marlene Dietrich. It's 1929, and Dietrich is not yet the film star and fashion legend she would become. Instead, she's a cabaret performer. In the musical, the Comedian Harmonists get a gig singing backup for Dietrich at Berlin's Cinderella Club. In Harmony, the six guys sing from behind a curtain during her act. When they complain, the club owner explains, "You scared her at rehearsal. She thought you were too good, so she told me to put you behind the scenery. Take it as a compliment." There is a lore that Dietrich was nervous the harmonists would distract from her performance. But what we know for certain is that the Comedian Harmonists, then called the Melody Makers, performed with Dietrich on September 5th, 1926 at the Berliner Theater. The Melody Makers were part of a revue titled Zwei Krawatten, which translates to two bow ties. And they were part of a few numbers. The next person the group encounters in Harmony is Albert Einstein. He plays a pivotal role in the Comedian Harmonists story as Bruce Sussman tells it in his script. In the musical, the character of Einstein greets the Comedian Harmonists backstage after taking in their performance at Carnegie Hall. He comes backstage to see his old friend's son, Eric Colleen. In reality, Einstein had been friends with Eric's father, Dr. Paul Abraham, and the family.
Eric, as a child, became some education in playing violin. And it's said that his father was a friend of Albert Einstein, and Einstein visited them in their home, and they played together. It's said that one time Eric himself said that he played together with Albert Einstein and his father on the violin.
That friendship would become crucial in Eric's later years. But back to the scene in Harmony. Bobby greets Einstein saying, "We were just saying how we missed our German friends." To which Einstein replies, "I'm becoming an American now, Mr. Baberti." Indeed, Albert Einstein was born in Germany in 1879 to Jewish parents. In real life, Einstein had accepted the post of a visiting professor in the United States in early 1933. He heard reports of raids on his family house back in Germany, and Einstein returned to his native land in March of 1933, along with his wife. That's when Einstein's own home was raided, and his boat was confiscated by the German government. He fled to Belgium in late March, early April, where he surrendered his German passport and renounced his German citizenship. In July, he moved to England. Finally, in October 1933, Einstein and his wife moved back to the United States. Einstein began teaching at the U.S. Institute for Advanced Study, as the most prestigious universities, including Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, did not have known Jewish faculty. Einstein and his wife applied for U.S. citizenship in 1935, which they were granted in 1940. The scene in Harmony that includes Einstein takes place in 1934. So true to life, Einstein would have been settling in the United States and becoming an American. In Harmony, Einstein is the one who sounds the alarm about the situation in Germany and the dangers of returning. Later in that scene, the Comedian Harmonists decide to return to Europe despite Einstein's warnings. Though the Harmonists did return to Germany after their 1934 trip to America in real life, there is no evidence that Einstein was the one who warned them of peril. As we know, the Jewish members of the Comedian Harmonists later fled to Vienna in 1935 and continued to tour the world. Around 1940, they landed in America. Erich Colleen, Einstein's family friend, decided to stay and seek U.S. citizenship. Einstein provided a reference letter, printed on letterhead that reads, The Institute of Advanced Study, School of Mathematics, Princeton, New Jersey. Albert Einstein wrote on Erich's behalf.
To whom it may concern, I, Albert Einstein, residing at 112 Mercer Street, Princeton, New Jersey, a naturalized American citizen, herewith state that I have known the family of Dr. Erich Abraham Colleen in Europe, where they were people of best reputation and high moral standards. Signed, Professor Albert Einstein.
The letter is dated November 17th, 1941. The character of Erich has another interesting relationship in Harmony, a romance with the singer Josephine Baker, played by Allison Semmes. Tell us what you knew about Josephine Baker before this.
Oh my God. Well, Josephine Baker was actually my very first book report.
No
in grad
way.
school. Yes. I was assigned her because, they all knew I was a performer. So they're like, why don't you study Josephine? So I knew that she was from the Midwest, like me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Chicago. She's from St. Louis.
Okay.
And then I knew that she left America and became a superstar, international superstar, and lived in Paris and was this figurehead of the Harlem Renaissance. I knew about her Rainbow Tribe. So she adopted 12 children from different countries just to show the world what global diversity could look like.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and one of her children, actually, Jean-Luc, I believe, has a restaurant on 9th Avenue called Chez Josephine.
Oh my God, that Chez Josephine is for Josephine Baker?
Yes. As a performer, she possessed this joie de vivre, is what I like to say. And so I kind of felt like I saw myself in her, seeing another Black woman performing with such freedom and liberation and joy and silliness and sensuality and all of the things. She really is my muse.
In actuality, Erich Colleen and Josephine Baker never dated, though they were friends. She and the Exile group, the Comedy Harmonists, were involved professionally. Were you able to find research about Josephine and the Comedian Harmonists? Because that's not just a thing for the show to throw in.
Right, it actually happened. And they recorded a few songs together as well, which shows you didn't really see too many Black women performing with European or white men, especially at that time. So she was always ahead of her time. And the fact that these two groups intersected was really major. They created their own symphony together, and she was very percussive.
On September 29th, 1935, the Comedy Harmonists and Josephine Baker stepped into the recording booth together. They recorded 2 French songs, Sous le ciel d'Afrique and Espabilat. A couple of months later, in November 1935, the Comedy Harmonists and Baker recorded 2 more songs, d'Ajaccio à Bonifacio and Il pleut sur la route. How would you describe the sound of the Comedian Harmonists without Josephine Baker? Yes. And then what the sound becomes with Josephine Baker?
It's the same. I feel like the styles are the same, right? So Josephine sang a lot, mostly in French, and then there were a few songs that she sang in English. But she had a classical voice. She as at the time, that was the style of the time. And they remind me, actually, the Comedian Harmonists remind me kind of of not Manhattan Transfer, but Take 6 in a sense where the harmonies are so luscious and clear and playful. And so it only made sense that they have this playful musical play with a singer who is just as playful. When I was working with Warren Carlisle, our director, choreographer, he says, you are bringing the light, you are bringing the joy. Josephine Baker this is kind of a side note, but she was an espionage. She was in the French resistance during World War II. And so she used her celebrity to gather information. And so she was also, anytime I saw her like in interviews, she was just so flirtatious and just so warm with the interviewer and like touchy-feely with everyone. And she just exuded love. And so there were times when I was doing my research that she would flirt with some of the officials to get information, to get classified information. So even though she may not have really had a relationship with Eric, she did. You could tell that she connected with people on that loving, intimate level.
And that scene where the reporters are all after her, certainly that's representative of her life because she was a major star.
She was the first international star, and she was born in America, but really blew up overseas and in Europe and then came back. I love this woman and I love her story and I love the intersection of her story and their story.
Yeah.
And I love the note that she plays in the harmony of it all.
The world is going loco. The world is going loco. The world is going loco.
The celebrities of harmony weren't just added for color. The Comedian Harmonists knew and worked intimately with these big names. Had the Nazis not destroyed their records, masters, and films, who knows if the Comedian Harmonists would be as well known as these celebrity counterparts. Who Were the Comedian Harmonists? The True Story Behind Broadway's Harmony is produced by Harmony, a New Musical, and Broadway News, the home for digital journalism on Broadway. I'm your host, Ruthie Fierberg. Thank you so much for listening. To read more about the Comedian Harmonists, visit thecomedianharmonists.com. For more information about the musical Harmony, visit harmonyanewmusical.com. And of course, to learn more about all of the happenings on Broadway, visit broadwaynews.com. If you're fascinated by what you've heard so far on this podcast, please share the Comedian Harmonists story on social media and tag @Harmony, a New Musical and @Broadway News.